Okay, let's get to our panel here, and let's start with could the tide be turning? Yesterday in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Supreme Court strikes down liberal Democrat Governor Tony Evers' stay-at-home order. Conservatives on the court struck down Evers' month-long stay-at-home order on Wednesday. Now, what this does is it was a 4-3 decision. I'm going to start with Dave here. It leaves Wisconsin with no restrictions right now. And what the Supreme Court said is, look, governors just can't shut businesses down. You've got to get the legislator involved. Your 60-day emergency order ran out, and you've got to pass a law. You just can't continue on this way. So actually right now, if you own a bar in Milwaukee, you can swing the doors open, put on the beer, and get going. Dave Larock, have people now had it with this?
Really depends on who you talk to, John. I think the media campaign that has presented this alleged looming disaster to the public has done a really, really good job. I get in the car, listen to radio, I scroll through Facebook, my different friends and neighbors, and some pretty conservative folks, and they still have some apprehensions about what's going on. You walk into a store, the few that are left open, and you hear the sound system talking about how we need to all work together. It's like there's a tidal wave still coming, or the building's on fire. I mean, I don't know what the perfect analogy of this is, but it's almost like somebody declared a fire drill. The alarms went off. They said clear the building, and now nobody's going to admit that there is no fire, or I shouldn't say no fire, but it's nowhere near as serious as what people predicted. So, you mentioned Wisconsin, and what comes to mind, John, is, you said people can throw out the doors and do whatever they want, open the doors. But in reality, what it's doing is reverting to where we should have been in the first place, where business owners, pastors, family members use some common sense, hopefully with good advice from the government. And that's been pretty hard to come by these days, I think. And they make sensible decisions about what's good for them. So, look at New York and even here in Virginia. How long did it take them to figure out that you don't cram the sick people in with the most vulnerable people in nursing homes? That was a government failure on a scale that it would be hard to rival. It cost lots of people their lives, and we're going to have to figure out why that went wrong. So, Wisconsin dumped some. The policies, the executive orders that governor put forward, like we need to get rid of some of these that Governor Northam is pushing on us, and let people use common sense and take the precautions that they will. They'll be innovative. Let me use an example from around here. Farmers markets. We talked to farmers market people early on, and they're some of the hardest working entrepreneurs out there. And right away they adapted their business model to a drive-in model. They hadn't done that before. They kept people safe, and I think they're thriving business-wise. That's just a perfect example of how if you let the entrepreneurial spirit and innovation drive the train, you can adapt without killing the whole economy. So, I think you've got Wisconsin, an ultra-liberal governor, worst case, violating people's constitutional rights up and down. Now, certainly governors do have some authority, but here in Virginia, Northam is way overstepped. I think that the challenge that was leveled against the indoor gun ranges has brought forward the principles, and it sort of reminds one of the McAuliffe used his power to reinstate voting rights to felons, and he decided to do it 100,000 at a time. And that's not a real number, but just in bulk, and he was challenged on that, and the Virginia Supreme Court said no, that this was meant to be individual pardons. Well, similarly with businesses, the governor probably has the authority through the health department or the health commission to say, okay, your business is not safe anymore, you have to close it. But that was never meant to give him blanket authority to shut down the whole economy. Far from it, but that's what he's turned it into. And until somebody really challenges him, then it's probably going to continue. Likewise with churches. I mean, we have so many explicit protections to separate government power from churches, and that they have just been tossed aside. And I think they're getting the least consideration in all of this. Some businesses statewide are going to be allowed to open, but here in Loudoun County, 10 people or more at a service. You got I attend a church that has a capacity of 2,500 in the main building. You telling me that it wouldn't be as safe in there as it would be a crowded Lowe's or a Home Depot on a weekend? And I go in there every day. The Lowe's and the Home Depot employees aren't dropping dead after 8 weeks or 6 weeks of this stuff. Neither are their customers.
Dave, Larock, according to what you're saying, then, and somebody said this wherever I was, I forget, where was I last week? Tennessee or something?
Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia.
Somebody told me this in the Delta in Mississippi. You go to the Walmarts. That's the only thing open in Clarksdale. I go there on a Sunday. I cannot park in the parking lot. I have to park across the street, right? And somebody said to me, if this social distancing and all this stuff that they're saying was true, there would be body bags outside of Walmart, right? Because all of the checkout people
Lowe's,
who are
Home
coming
Depot.
into contact with 1,000 people a day,
Right.
They'd all be dropping dead. In fact, none of them are. None of them are sick.
Yeah.
And, half the people in there, I would say when I was in Mississippi, half of them did not have a mask. When I was in Tennessee, 75% didn't have a mask. So the mask things aren't doing it. But John, where do we go with this? I mean, what is Northam's? What was his objective in keeping Northern Virginia locked down and not even getting to the tiny little phase one that he has? John Whitbeck.
Well, like I said, I just think once a progressive governor seizes power, they're not going to give it back without a fight. And let me get technical, legal for a second, and let's just look at this from one segment that I think needs to do more, and I asked them to do more. The evangelical community. Imagine for a second that the next wave of shutdowns was on gun rights. Let's say that the government said it is proven science that gun stocks cause COVID-19. Let's assume for a second that happened. Now that's far-fetched. It's not going to happen. It's ridiculous. But just think about that. The Second Amendment superstars that have marched on Richmond and have been fighting back against our legislature would be all over it. They'd assemble and they'd do what they do, and that is fight back. The First Amendment is under assault right now. We are being told that the governor has the right to shut down your ability to worship how you want to worship. Now, mosques, synagogues, churches, all are shut down right now. But let's just take the churches. The evangelical community is millions strong across this country. They helped elect President Trump. They could be a huge force in bringing this back if they step up and say, we will not stand for our First Amendment right to assemble and worship being overridden by a governor. Period. The First Amendment never contemplated the right of a governor, a president, or a king to shut down your ability to worship.
So when are we going to rise up? I mean, when are people going to say they've had enough? I mean, you guys are in Northern Virginia. Caleb, you're a supervisor here. John, you live here. You ran for chairman. Dave's a House of Delegates member. I mean, we come on this radio show, we can say what we want, but John, is your actions, where is it going to turn into action? What should people do?
Caleb, you had a letter that was dispersed to the governor with Supervisor Buffington, a Republican and from a rural district, but you also had a Democrat join.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
The district we're sitting in right in, Leesburg, the Leesburg supervisor, former mayor of Leesburg, Kristen Umstead, joined with the Republicans to call for reopening. You know why? Because she gets it. Say what you want about Democrats, most of Kristen Umstead has been a friend of small businesses. I'll give her credit. She's a progressive, but she's for small businesses in Leesburg.
Right.
She gets it. Until you actually see small businesses pounding on the doors of the Loudoun Government Center and beyond, demanding reopening, we're not going to have, and we're just not having enough fight back right now.
John,
there's not a grassroots movement.
Just go right down the road here. There's Wegmans right here outside where we are. I go there once a week.
Right.
None of the employees wear masks.
Right.
I walk in without a mask.
Right.
I don't see anybody dying. I don't see anybody dropping them. What really makes me laugh, people wearing a mask in the car and they're by themselves.
Or running outside.
What's up with that?
Delegate Larock, let me ask you this. When the governor decided to carve out Northern Virginia, Nova, and put off the phase one, which is tepid as it is for 2 weeks, the only metric he gave was cases. Right now, there's 5,000 hospital beds open. 82% of the ventilators we have are sitting in a warehouse. No hospitals are being overrun. run. In fact, hospitalizations, the curve is flat. It's not going up, whether it's Northern Virginia or Virginia Beach. So what was the metrics? What was the science and data that Northam used to justify keeping your area on another 2-week lockdown?
Good question, John. But if I may, just to backtrack, John said that we haven't started the uprising yet. Well, I attended 2 in-person services in Loudoun County last Sunday morning, and there are pastors out there that are saying enough is enough. We're opening our doors. So if anybody wants to call me, I'll direct them to where those churches are.
Really?
Yeah. And we sent a letter to the governor, not asking
Are you going to
him.
be able to sing?
I've never been able to sing, John, but I will do my best. It'll sound
Dave,
good,
and the one church that rose up and did sue to stop this was
Lighthouse Church in
yeah,
Cherokee.
right. It was
Yeah.
denied because the judge said, well, they didn't say you couldn't worship. They just said you could only have 10 or less people, which is that's a distinction without a difference as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but it's going to involve civil disobedience, John. Now, that's a pretty serious thing to say, I think, but they're just not getting it. They meaning the people
Well,
who are
it's
imposing
tyranny.
this.
It's tyranny. That's all it is.
That's the way to put it.
Look at your state flag.
Yeah. The governor's got his boot on our throat. Until we decide to do some kind of wrestling maneuver and flip it around, we're going to be stuck. But as far as the metrics, John, I'm not an epidemiologist, and don't pretend to be on weekends. But what I don't get is all these numbers. I mean, it just stands to reason that if you give more tests, you're going to come up with more positives. The most meaningful number that I've seen are the numbers that indicate how many people have died from this. So, because that's kind of where the rubber hits the road. People die every year, lots of people, from the regular influenza that runs a circuit. So Loudoun County's deaths per 100,000 is way below Virginia. Now, actually, it's fairly close to Virginia overall, but less than. But yet still they want to continue us in lockdown for at least 2 more weeks.
But why?
Don't ask me to get into the mind of Ralph Northam. Fred, that's a dangerous place to go.
But there's no
John,
remember they said science and data, science and data, science and data. Well, there's no science and data that justifies keeping Loudoun County or Northern Virginia shut down for another 2 weeks, other than politics.
Well, I agree. I just had an op-ed pop yesterday and pointing that out. I think that's what motivates these interjurisdiction folks that Phyllis Randall has decided to align with, and as she abandons her constituents here in Loudoun County.
Because she's running for lieutenant governor.
Well, allegedly undeclared. That could well be the case.
But again, so Randall, who's the supervisor, who's the chairman here, is not allowing businesses to operate, put food on the table, keep people out of work, so that she can burnish her left-wing credentials, so that she can be a player in a left-wing Democratic primary running for lieutenant governor. So, I mean, now we've got people that want positions of power within the Democratic Party, and their I guess, fee to entry, their badge of honor, is shutting small businesses down and staying home.
Well, John, look at where the power
is that where we're at now, Dave?
Well, Virginia is run by Northern Virginia. I mean, face it. Look at all the committee chairmen in the legislature. Almost all of them are from Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia elects is now controlling our legislature. They're probably going to have a strong influence on electing the next president. They get that. And if Phyllis Randall wants to run with that crowd, I mean, that's her choice, but it does not work in the best interest of Loudoun County, to say the least, or Virginia overall.
So I want to get back to what Dave Larock said here, Delegate Larock, is that the only way, and John Whitbeck kind of alluded to it, but you said the only way that you're going to get out of this is by, I guess, civil disobedience. And I'm to the point, Delegate Larock, where I don't think we can skirt this issue now. I mean, people can't put food on the table. There is fear, economic fear, that is running amok with business owners that I've talked to, and just people that want to get their jobs back.
Absolutely.
And so the only way you're going to do this is by civil disobedience, but you're not disobeying anything. You're disobeying a governor's unconstitutional order.
Exactly. It's really recognizing the hierarchy of law that exists. If you have constitutional rights, which we do, or God-given rights that the Constitution is meant to protect, and the government or governor is violating them, then you're compelled to do what you need to do, and that is obey the higher law. Now, that's risky stuff, and I don't take lightly encouraging people to ignore a legitimate order, but we are so far beyond that, John. I mean, it's just kind of gotten pretty obvious. And again, I use churches as the best example because there's explicit protections. The government is way out of bounds. And at the same time, excuse me, like I say, I've taken pictures and put them on my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Empty Cornerstone Church parking lot on Sunday, full Home Depot, full Lowe's. Now, I'm not bashing Lowe's. I'm glad they're open.
Or Giants,
and
or
they've
whoever.
proven that they can be open safely.
Right.
But to tell churches you can't have 10 people in more than 10 people in a 2,500 person sanctuary, that's crazy.
Caleb, why are they doing that? Why are they singling churches out, Caleb?
Again, I don't want to get in that mind of Ralph Northam, but I'd like to take this statistic. We're looking at the number of deaths, but look at the number of recoveries nationwide. I pulled this statistic. In America, America's got the highest percentage of recoveries in the world. We have 99.988 individuals recovering who we know have had the COVID-19 virus. So what does that tell you? That tells you that almost everybody that gets it, and we know that the children aren't getting it. And so I back to Dave's point where we have people. The problem is our governments don't trust the people. At least certainly the liberal form of government doesn't trust the people. And the people of Lowe's and the people of Home Depot and those individuals have figured it out. And quite frankly, they don't trust our churches to protect their people or the businesses to protect their the individuals coming in and supporting their businesses to protect them. So I think it's a complete matter of distrust. And I don't know, maybe the big corporations give monies to these folks. Who knows? I mean, that's pure speculation.
Of course they do, and as you know, remember it was Obama who said, what was it in Pennsylvania in 2008? He said, these voters cling to their God and their guns. Right. I mean, it really gets back to that, right? They don't vote for them. They don't give them any money. Those people that hang on to their God and their guns. And so, look, I just think I've been around the country, and I got to tell you, the level of frustration has hit its apex. The number of people that I talk to that are just done with this because the numbers no longer support it. They don't believe it, and they want to get their lives back. And everybody understands there's an element of risk that goes on. But I think those Republicans who stand up to this and now start calling it out, I think are going to be very successful. And those that aren't, John Whitbeck, they're gonna fall by the wayside. I mean, I gotta tell you this, and I'm gonna criticize your party right now. I haven't seen crap out of the Republican Party of Virginia. I think I saw one press release, no press conference. I mean, they let Ralph Northam run amok. Nobody's holding him accountable. And other than an occasional press release from Garen Shipley from the minority leader's office, you guys haven't done crap. And it's frustrating people. John Fredericks Radio Network.